Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. As always, I'm Ari here with Korea. We had a pretty unfortunately eventful Thursday night football game with a lot of injuries and a game that started off looking, it would be pretty good, but obviously by the second half, it wound up being pretty lopsided. We have Mark Andrews out for the season for the Ravens. Joe Burrow suffered an injury that helped your prop. But I mean, even before the injury, he wasn't. It was trending towards going on there even before the injury. But that was, that was unfortunate. Now the Bengals are at 5-5 with potentially Burrow out for some time. So obviously their season is really in limbo now. But you had some. We had some, fun March Madness vibes, college basketball games as well yesterday. One that you hit with Dayton. So I guess we'll get right into the recap for you, Korea.
I mean, yeah, Dayton, that was an amazing win. That buzzer beater three with like 3 seconds left, just March Madness vibes. That's what I've been talking about, with these tournament games, these Thanksgiving tournament games. As we get more and more into the slate, we have a big loaded slate for college basketball today. I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but obviously first Dayton, big win on the money line. That line was going toward Dayton and then down toward LSU, and then I think Dayton closed its favorites, and then throughout that game, Dayton was down, and it just looked like that was one that was chalked, and I kind of knew into that. I just didn't know what Dayton team was going to show up, and then they made that big second half comeback and stormed all the way back, and then took the lead and then it was just an amazing game. So that was a great win to see right there. And then Furman, that was tough. I mean, I didn't expect Furman to shoot the ball that bad, but at the same time, Liberty just could not miss a shot. And I just Liberty, I was not familiar with your game. I was not familiar with your game, Liberty. That's all I have to say about that one. But it was just a tough loss for Furman over there. But I'll take a 1-on-1 day for college basketball, and then obviously another 1-on-1 day for the NFL game. Obviously the Thursday night football game, Bengals Ravens. The primetime under streak, Ari, has officially ended. It was a shame to see it, but the under streak has officially ended with Gus Edwards obviously getting into that late touchdown with like 4 minutes left and hitting for the over. So that was a tough break to see. So the under streak has officially ended, but we're going to come back into that soon, so don't worry. And then obviously you don't like to see a win that way, but Joe Burrow's under 257.5 passing yards was win, but at the same time, a win, but at what cost? Obviously you mentioned Joe Burrow going down with that injury. We saw the video of him throwing on the sideline, and he immediately shook his head, and we just knew that it was bad. And then you mentioned this game full of injuries. Mark Andrews went down for the season. Joe Burrow, he's probably going to be out for probably an extended amount of time. And now the Bengals sit at 5-5 in a AFC North division that every team is at least going to be 2 or 3 games. I mean, we have the 6-3 Browns and the 6-3 Steelers. So one of those teams is going to be 7-3 after this week. I mean, I have the Ravens who just keep piling on wins. The Bengals may be that one team left out if Joe Burrow can't continue. So that was a win, but at what cost? You don't really like to see a win like that, but you'll take it. It's a win. So I'll take a 2-2 day. Furman just couldn't shoot the ball. Dayton, that was a March Madness moment for me. The primetime under streak ends, but Joe Burrow, the under cashes, but at what cost? So 2-2 day, I'll take it. Ari, I know you had a interesting day, especially I know the NBA, that was a great one for you. But then that Ravens first half as well, that was getting a little sweaty at first. But then I'll let you recap. How did you do yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens was looking good. The first drive, Ravens drive, no problem, score a touchdown. And then they don't score again for the rest of the half until basically their last possession of the half when first Zay Flowers had the touchdown on the little quick pass they took to the house, and they called holding on, I think it was Odell, that didn't look like holding to me, but they called it. And then later in the drive, Lamar had I don't know who he was targeting, but it bounced off somebody, it went up in the air, and it was caught by Aguilar, who took it to the house with the front flip into the end zone. So that was a good catch there. And then I think was that when I think that was when Browning came in right after that, and he was driving for a little bit, and it looked like they were gonna be in field goal range, and then I think it was Irwin who had a first down catch that they reviewed and called it complete, so the Bengals had to punt. And so the Ravens held on to cover for the first half. And then, like you said, the Thunder, they cruised in the first half. And the second half, the Warriors started to creep back a little bit originally. So that made the first half catch even obviously better because I didn't have to sweat, the full game for that. But, yeah, like I said, the first half, getting it out, keep working out well for me. So I'm going to keep going back to them in spots where I think I think the first half is a better look in the full game.
Yeah, obviously, you in these first halves have been very pretty friendly for you as well. You mentioned the Ravens; that was a little sweaty, but some circus with with a Nelson Aguilar catch, taking it to the house, did eventually get you the cash, and I was on that as well. I did like the Ravens for the first half. The Ravens are always kind of been a team that have been dominant throughout that first half, but then struggle in the second half. But that was kind of the reverse. They struggled in the first half, but then dominated in the second half. So it was great to see the Ravens first half cash, and then the Thunder, that was obviously very sweat free. It's hard being a Klay Thompson supporter out here. I'm serious. It's really hard. You want to defend this man, and he just can't show up anymore. And that was a pretty sweat free win for you. So glad to see the Thunder pretty much first half money line cash for you as well. So 2 wins for you. That's a nice sweep for you on the night. After my 2-2 day. So 4-2 overall. We love to have a positive day here on AKP Sports Talk. But now getting into today's, obviously, we have a loaded slate. We're going to get into today's, and then obviously we have college football and college basketball tomorrow, as well as NFL on Sunday. But here are mine. This is strictly just for today, obviously. Obviously, there's a loaded slate with college basketball. So many great games today. But these are my favorite games of the day. I'm going to go first. We are riding the Dayton wagon, the Flyers. We are going back to their money line today at -115. I like this line for Dayton. I think they are going to be beating St. John's by more. Yesterday is not coming down to that buzzer beater shot yesterday when they beat LSU. I think LSU is a better team than St. John's. I think St. John's, they struggled against a really defensive team against UNT yesterday, University of North Texas, and they barely survived. Almost could have had another buzzer beater as well, another March Madness moment, but North Texas didn't get the shot off in time, so that they escaped with the win. So I don't really credit St. John's with that, and I credit Rick Pitino for what he's done so far. But they've had some really tough. They've had an up and down start to the year. They had a really bad loss. I remember, as we heard about, they had that D3 school beat them, in the scrimmages, the secret scrimmages. But and then they had a bad loss early. But then they barely squeaked by University of North Texas, and it makes you think like, well, is this team actually really good? So I like Dayton today on the money line at -115. I think Dayton is the better team. I think Dayton is going to advance. Dayton has always been that team at the beginning of the year that always kind of starts out a little streaky, and especially against non-conference opponents in these tournament games. So give me Dayton today on the money line. That's an early game as well, so make sure you cash that in. I believe that tips in almost, I think, an hour. So you may want to get that pretty much as soon as you can. I like Dayton on the money line this morning. And then heading into a little bit in the afternoon, I like Houston at -9.5 today against Utah. I think that's at -110 on DraftKings right now. I think Utah got a little exposed last night by Wake Forest in that game. They did win by 7, but for the majority of that game, Wake Forest was leading. If you really shut down Brandon Carlson, you're really shutting down all of Utah's offense. And I feel like Houston, a really defensive team. I think if they just shut down Brandon Carlson today, I think it's going to be a really long day for this Utah offense. And I like Houston as well offensively to really get the job done. They're one of the best teams at pretty much when you look at a complete team, you look at Houston and what Kelvin Sampson has done. Defensively, Houston's one of the best teams in the country. And then on the offensive side, they have plenty of scorers continuing. And so I think Houston at -9.5 is a great line. So I'm taking that as well for college basketball. And then finally, my final play for college basketball, we are taking Providence at home on the money line at -122. This is a great spot for them. They're facing K-State at home, and we love Jerome Tang in this K-State story, but Providence at home is a wagon. you do not bet against Providence at home. Providence at home is one of the best teams in the country. They continue that from last season, even though they did lose Cooley, obviously, to Georgetown. I still believe Providence is still one of the better teams that's being slept on right now, and they obviously have an undefeated start, and they're playing a K-State team who has not, obviously they don't have Marquise Noel and they don't have the stars from last year, but they do have Jerome Tang, but it's still not that same K-State team that was pretty dominant that we saw, with all the stars. And I think last year was kind of just, that Cinderella story, with Keontae Johnson as well. But I like Providence at home. Providence, they have one of the best home atmospheres and one of the better environments for a home basketball game. So I am taking Providence on the money line tonight, minus 122. So those are my 3 plays. Dayton money line, Houston minus 9.5, and then Providence on the money line. Those are my 3 plays for college basketball. And then, look, college football. I know what you see on the screen. I know what you see on the screen. It says Colorado +4. I know I'm a Coug. I'm an alum. I love my Cougs. I love them to death. But they ain't winning today. We are not winning today. I'm going to tell you right now, we are not winning today. This program is going downhill. I have some insider information I can't reveal, but right now it's not looking great for that locker room. And when you see that line opened at Wazoo -6, that has crept all the way down to Colorado +4 over the week, Wazoo -4 in terms of the favorites. So, Vegas is kind of showing that, Colorado is definitely going to be covering this line. I'd even sprinkle Colorado on the money line. I don't know what that I think it's +1 something, but I sprinkle that as well. I love Colorado in this spot, and I hate to say this, and I know I'm going to get flamed by all my Coug friends for this and but I have to do it. They understand Colorado is going to be the better team tonight. I don't think this was, even though it's on senior night and all the emotions around it. Obviously, probably the last Pac-12 game at Martin Stadium, Gisa Field, all the emotions around it. I still think Colorado comes in and gets the job done. It's Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, one of the best offensive quarterbacks in this Pac-12. We look at how Colorado's offense has pretty much kept them in these games. And, they had a tough loss, obviously against Arizona, but that was on a field goal. And, that you saw that game. That was a pretty back and forth game, I'd say, throughout that. So, and you compare the Wazoo game against Arizona on the road, and Wazoo got stomped. And I feel, if Colorado can keep that competitive atmosphere, at their home game against, a good Arizona team, I feel like, Colorado will just come in and get the job done, especially, against a secondary that has, against a Wazoo secondary that is not 100% healthy as of this moment. So, there are still questions, and I still believe that Shedeur Sanders is definitely just going to torch up this defense for Washington State. So I like Colorado +4, and I like Colorado on the money line tonight. I think it's just a simple play. It's a battle of surviving for eligibility. Obviously, both of these teams are 4-6, so the loser will be officially non-bowl eligible after their final game next week. So something's gonna have to give, and in a game where who wants them more? I right now say Colorado wants them more, just because we've seen, even though both of them on horrible losing streaks. Wazoo has not won a game since September, and Colorado has not won a game since October, and it is the second to last week of the regular season. So that shows you how abysmal these programs have been so far. And I feel like in this kind of spot, you got to give it to the team that wants them more, and I think Colorado will want them more. So those are my plays for today. I like Dayton on the money line for college basketball, Houston -9.5, Providence on the money line, and then wrapping up with the late night Colorado +4 against Washington State on the road. Those are my 4 plays for today. Ari, I know we have a loaded slate for you. What are your plays, if you have any, just for today?
Yeah, I've had some success this week just with 2 plays, taking my 2 favorite plays. So that's what I'm doing again here. And I'll start. I'm with you on Colorado, and obviously, you went over it, obviously. But I saw Colorado last week against Arizona, and even though they're on a long losing streak, at least their offense is still showing some fight, and their defense is at least a little more aggressive as well. Even though it's still prone to give a big play, especially on the ground. But yeah, Washington State, they showed some fight against Cal, but, both teams are turning down. But when push comes to shove, I trust the Colorado offense more, of the 2 teams. And, I feel like Washington State's defense has been its bright spot, in years past, and it hasn't been as much of the case this year, at least during this losing streak, at least. So I like Colorado. I think they win the game, but obviously you take the points as well just to be safe. So I like, like you said as well, both the points and money line. And then I'm going back to the first half in the NBA with the Knicks again, fading the Wizards. They've lost, I think, 8 or 9 games. They're bottom 3 team in the NBA. The Knicks have been competitive in every game. It's 7.5 for the game, but again, like I said, I've been treated well with these. Just cover the first half. Just got to a good start. So that's what I'm going with here with the Knicks, just to cover 4 points, win by 5+ to win this bet in the first half, which I think they can do against the Wizards. So yeah, Knicks first half -4 against the Wizards, and then Colorado full game +4 and keep the points money line.
Yeah, I agree with you on Colorado. I have nothing else to say about that game. And then you mentioned the Knicks in the first half. That's been one of your specialties, going get in and get out through the first half. And you mentioned this Wizards team just not doing good at all. They are struggling. They're not a serious team, and it can be fading the Wizards wagon. That can be our wagon all season, just fading the Wizards because they're just not a serious team. So I like that. I like those picks as well. Colorado +4 and the money line, like I said as well. And then the Knicks first half -4. I like that play as well for tonight. And then now we're gonna get into tomorrow. Obviously, big day. We have some college basketball and obviously the main event, obviously in college football. So here are my plays for college football. And first, that's why I'm wearing this shirt, people. I'm taking Washington State on the money line tomorrow for college basketball. They play at 9 a.m., so you got to get this up early. There's no really lines out right now, but I assume they're probably going to be slight favorites in this spot. I do like them. I think that Washington State is the better team. I feel when I watch this Mississippi State basketball team, they definitely struggle offensively, and Wazoo has taken a big step in their offense this year. They look like a more complete team, and I do think that they'd get the job done tomorrow. And this is obviously a neutral site game. This is a neutral site game. This is one of those tournament games, and in these spots, you take a team that has the better defense, and I think Washington State does have the better defense in this spot. And I do think Washington State will win out this race, so I do think I'm on the money line. But I do think it's going to be a close game between them and Mississippi State. But I think Washington State will win that on the money line. And then obviously going to college football, and I know the game of the day. I'm even calling my friends here. Cyrus Nimmo. I know you were trying to go to the Apple Cup, right? I know you're trying to go to the Apple Cup. You don't need to go because they're not winning this week. Okay, they're not winning this week. Oregon State is winning. I'm telling you right now, the Huskies are not winning. Oregon State money line. I'm hammering that. That's my favorite play of this week. The line's been going up and down. I don't care. Oregon State's winning in this game. It's not even just for the emotion. I think that this Oregon State running attack is just going. I don't think UW is ready for this running attack. I think Oregon State's running attack is the best in the country, or one of the best in the country. When you look at the duo that Oregon State has, and I've seen it firsthand actually watching Oregon State versus Washington State, they have 2 Derrick Henrys. I don't think you realize like 2 Derrick Henrys in the same. Deshaun Fenwick and Damian Martinez run exactly like Derrick Henry. They're big body power backs that can drive. They can make you miss tackles, and obviously we know UW and miss tackles, so that's probably going to be a long day for them if they can't stop Deshaun Fenwick or Damian Martinez out in the open. And if you get them out in the open, it is over. They have that speed to take it to the house, and I think in this kind of game, in a ground game, and you definitely have Ugalele as well in the back, and I think this Oregon State offense is finally starting to catch themselves. I think Oregon State definitely can run this clock out. Definitely make it hard for Penix to try to come back, especially if they're down deep in their own territory, especially with an Oregon State defense that can get to the quarterback. So another big test will be how Oregon State's defensive line will do against the UW offensive line that has protected Penix very well this year. But I do like Oregon State in this game. I just think the running game is going to be prevalent, especially for UW, who has struggled against the run. We saw against that game for Oregon. Bucky Irving did have a great game on the ground, even though obviously UW did get the win at home. I think this is a tough spot for them on the road. Even though that line has been trending in UW's favor right now, I still like Oregon State on the money line. I just feel like this team is going to get the job done at home, in pretty much their last home game in the Pac-12 against the number 5 team in the country before they got to go play the number 6 team in the country the week after in another big-time game, obviously. But I do like Oregon State this week on the money line at home. And then finally, we're going to go to Kansas, plus 9.5. I think that's minus 110 on DraftKings right now. This is another rivalry game because it's in state. It's I don't know what their game is called between K-State and Kansas, but it's one of those rivalry games. And obviously K-State is huge favorites in this spot. Obviously, way more a better defensive team, but you got to go on the road and play Kansas. And I feel like with all this realignment stuff and obviously a big game at home for I just think 9.5 is too many points. I think Kansas makes this one of those games where it's at home and Kansas is a lot better this year. I feel like at home, and they're playing a lot better at home, even with all the quarterback issues for the Jayhawks. I do like Kansas to cover this. To cover this line at 9.5. I think 9.5 is too many points. Even if they do outright win, I'm not taking them to outright win, but it's obviously a in-state rivalry game, so there's going to be a lot of personal animosity, especially when both of them are good. It's definitely going to be a lot of animosity. So I definitely like Kansas to cover that line at plus 9.5 tomorrow. So those are my 3 plays for Saturday. I have Washington State tomorrow morning on the money line for college basketball. I have Oregon State on the money line for college football in that big game versus UW tomorrow night. And then I have Kansas covering that 9.5 point spread against K-State at home, in-state rivalry game. I think it's the personal, especially at home. Kansas fans are going to show up. They know what's happening. I'm taking Kansas plus 9.5. Ari, I know we got a little slate. What are you taking tomorrow in Saturday's games?
Yeah, I'm going with the Pac-12 trio, all Pac-12 games. I'll start off with Arizona at home. Arguably, the hottest team in the Pac-12 and one of the hottest teams in the country. 4 wins in a row. Welcome Utah to Tucson, where Utah is not the same team away from it's called Eccles. It's Hunter. It's all something Eccles Stadium, I think.
Eccles.
Eccles. But yeah, they're coming off. They gave UW a run for their money last week. They had the lead at halftime before they went scoreless in the second half. And Arizona has a top 20 run defense in the country quietly, and that's what Utah tries to do to get their offense going, with Cam Rising not playing. So between that and then, Utah's defense has been, in certain spots hasn't been quite as dominant, against tougher offenses. And I think Arizona has enough playmakers all on both the ground and, in the receiving game to, get enough going in front of what will be a sellout crowd in Tucson. So I like Arizona. It's basically an even line. So I just took them on the money line over Utah. And then we're going head to head here with Washington, Oregon State. I know I think I was a little surprised that Oregon State was a favorite, but I didn't think that, I thought it would be a close line. So I'm not it's not like a huge surprise necessarily. But like you said, it's going to be really the Oregon State run game against the Huskies, kind of pass game. Although, Dylan Johnson can hold his own too, for the Huskies run game as well. But yeah, I mean, obviously this is the Huskies' chance to stay obviously in the college football playoff race, because obviously any loss and they're out of it. It's going to be a tough environment, like you said, in Oregon State. I think I saw a report that they checked in with the fire department in Oregon State, because they're expecting such a full crowd that there might be some sort of I don't know what to call it, but they just want to make sure that it didn't overfill too much the crowd. I saw something on Twitter about that. So it's going to be obviously a fired up crowd. Oregon State number, I think 11, I believe, against number 5 Washington. I think it's going to be back and forth. Like you said, the Huskies defense can't tackle, so they're gonna miss some tackles, and I think there's gonna be a lot of points in this game. But push comes to shove, Penix has made big drives at the end of close games, pretty much all season, and especially kind of in the past month when they've been in closer games as well. So that's why I like there. And then USC, I'm really just fading UCLA's offense here, coming off they lost ASU last week, and what was a really embarrassing offensive showing by UCLA. USC's defense is really bad, but I mean, so is ASU's defense, and UCLA got basically nothing against them last week. So I think that it will be too much for USC's offense, or USC's offense will be too much for UCLA's offense here. I think they'll win by 7+. Obviously, they kind of kept it. They covered against Oregon last week, USC, so they kept it pretty close. And against the UCLA team that's trending downwards, and there's been rumors of them letting go of Chip Kelly soon. I don't think it's official, but there's been talk of it. So I like USC to cover and win by a touchdown here against UCLA. So Arizona money line, Washington money line, and then USC to cover 6.5 against UCLA tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I like Arizona as well. You mentioned Arizona at home, one of the sneakiest top run defenses in the country, and that's pretty much all Utah kind of leans on with Jaquindon Johnson and all the backs that they have at Utah. You mentioned how UW and Utah last week they played they kept it close, but obviously in the end UW went out and got the win at home. But obviously it could have been a lot more of a less competitive game if that pick six went into the end zone, and obviously. And obviously, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I do like Arizona in this spot at home. I think Arizona has been, obviously, as you said, one of the sneakiest teams in the country that has been really, really hot and has been trending in the right direction. I think that the direction that Jedd Fisch has led that program in, from going to being almost one of the laughing stocks of college football to now being one of the best teams in the country is truly amazing with all the talent that has been there. So I do like Arizona on the money line. And then, look, I see where you're coming from. Right? And Oregon State is known to have not the greatest secondary. Obviously, Wazoo's secondary absolutely torched them back in that September game. So if Wazoo's offense can torch them, I know UW is going to have a field day with that secondary. But I just believe that Oregon State run defense, that Oregon State run offense is just going to be too much for UW. So we'll have a little clash, of course, on Saturday between Oregon State and Washington. And then I agree with you on USC minus 6.5. I mean, I can't really say much because we lost to ASU, but I mean, they only scored 7 points at home, and it's just a tough game for UCLA, and they don't look good right now. And you mentioned obviously the rumors of Chip Kelly. I believe there were actual rumors of him being fired after this game. So obviously there's that to pretty much deal with. So I think it's almost official. So I don't know. Obviously, as you mentioned, it's rumors, but I think it's like 90% official that he's going to be let go after this. So, obviously UCLA's offense trending in the wrong direction. And then you mentioned USC, they did cover last week against Oregon. That was obviously, Oregon looks like one of the best teams in the Pac-12 right now, or even in the country, in terms of how offensively they execute, and then defensively they can just get to the quarterback. And I feel like minus 6.5 is great for USC. I think they win by almost 10+, even though it is a rivalry game, and they're going to see each other next year in the same conference. Woohoo! I think USC minus 6.5 is a great cover. So I think USC wins out this game in the Battle of LA in the Rose Bowl against UCLA. So those are Ari's 3 picks, and then now, obviously, the moment you have been waiting for, Sunday. We have Sunday's full slate, and here are my 3 best bets for Sunday. I am taking the Seahawks on the money line. I'm taking the Steelers on the money line. I know, people, they're the luckiest team in the world right now. And then I'm taking the Raiders and Dolphins under 46 right now. I think that's minus 108 on DraftKings. So first, we're going to start with the Seahawks, and I like the Seahawks in this bounce back spot against the Rams on the road. The Seahawks against that week 1 team. The Seahawks week 1 are not the Seahawks that are playing now in this spot. I think it's week 12 against against the Rams, obviously, and obviously the Rams as well. They did not have Cooper Kupp, but the Seahawks defense wasn't really fully healthy yet, and obviously now they have Leonard Williams to kind of back up the way the Seahawks have been playing really well defensively. And don't sleep on Seattle right now. They have been sneakily playing really well, and I think this offense is slowly starting to figure out themselves. I think now with Charbonnet being more used, I think that's kind of been helping the Seahawks, get more yardage, whether it's on first or second down. And I like how they're using him. I like them in this spot against the Rams, obviously. Even with Matthew Stafford coming back, I still feel like the Seahawks are definitely they usually split, obviously, in this spot against the Rams. And obviously at home they took the bad loss week 1, but I like the Seahawks to bounce back in this spot and get the win on the road against the Rams team that does not look the same. And they're on the fringe of hopes of elimination. I think the Seahawks just kind of end those hopes right now. So I think the Seahawks do get the job done on Sunday, and I take them on the money line on Sunday afternoon. And I'm going to go up and take the Steelers on the money line against Cleveland. And I know the Steelers, they should not be 6-3 right now, but they are, and they're the luckiest team in football for a reason. Obviously, as soon as the Deshaun Watson news kind of broke out, I kind of just knew that the Steelers were going to win this game. I was already trending in the direction of the Steelers. That line opened at 4, and then it moved to 2.5, and now it's at 1. So I just think the Steelers are going to win this game somehow. Like I said, the Steelers are the luckiest team in football right now, and I think that trend continues just because of the fact that now that this Cleveland team does not have Deshaun Watson, and they're going to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And the game we saw, he did have that dual threat ability, obviously, that we did see at UCLA from DTR, his ability to run and throw the ball. But, especially against a pass rush in the Steelers defense, I don't know how he does. And, the Steelers obviously know how to get to the quarterback, and especially in this kind of environment. I believe is this game in Cleveland or is this game in Pittsburgh? I forgot where this game is at.
Let me look real quick. I think it's in Pittsburgh.
If it's in Cleveland,
no, Cleveland.
Then I see why Cleveland's favored right now, because it's in Cleveland. But I still feel as if this pass rush will get to this. The Steelers pass rush will get to DTR in this kind of in this really sloppy game. It's going to be really bad offensively between two offenses that will continue to struggle. I like the Steelers to win outright on the money line. And then the Raiders and Dolphins, I'm taking their under 46. It's a system play. The Miami Dolphins are up. I think 13 and a half, 14-point favorites against this Antonio Pierce-led Raiders team. And, when those spreads are, so high and that over-under is around 40, I don't like taking such a big over because it's if Miami's going to cover that spread, they're going to play, just running out the clock and, kind of just, how that football works, just run out the clock, just not forcing turnovers, making sure, just you're getting defensive stands. And I like this under at 46 right now. I think it's going to be, I think the Miami Dolphins will not cover. I think the Raiders do cover in the spot. I'm not taking that as a pick, but I do take it as a lean. But I am officially taking the under 46. I think if Miami is going to get to a big lead, whether it's a first or second half lead, I think, they'll slow down the offense. And obviously, their offense cannot be slowed down with A-Chain officially coming back this week. And, they still have, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and all the fast guys on that team. I think if the Dolphins do get out to a big lead, I think just slow down the offense, just run out the clock against the Raiders team that, does sneakily, have, a decent run defense. But, I don't know how they're going to do against, the speed demons and A-Chain and Hill and all those guys. So give me the under 46. I think it's going to be, one of those games where it's going to be, maybe like a 20-10 game. And, the Dolphins get out to like a 20-0 lead at half or something, and then the Raiders just come back and score 10. So I like this under at 46. So those are my 3 plays for Sunday. I like the Hawks and Steelers both on the money line. So separate ways, of course. And then I'm taking the Raiders and Dolphins to go under 46. Ari, I know you got some picks for Sunday. What do you got?
Yeah, so I'm on the Seahawks as well. Mostly avenging the Week 1 loss, where it was weird, where they lost both tackles, Charles Kloss and Abe Lucas. Now they have Cross back, and they designated Lucas to return to practice. I'm not sure if he'll return this week or they may save him for the beginning of the gauntlet of the 4-game stretch next week. I'm not sure what that will be. But either way, the offensive line should be better this week than it was in Week 1, or at least the second half of Week 1 when they lost both of the tackles. And I think the big thing for Gino is not turning the ball over because he tends to struggle more against kind of like zone defense and man-to-man, and the Rams run a lot of zone defense, so that's kind of the concern for Gino in this matchup. And then obviously McVay's kind of had his way quite a bit with Pete Carroll throughout kind of their careers facing each other. So I mean, I think it's an even spread, for a reason. But I like the Seahawks just offensively, what we've seen from them recently. The defense was a bit of a concern last week, giving up 2 touchdowns late to the Commanders. But Stafford's coming back, but he's coming back off his injury. So we'll see if that affects him in any way. I think the Seahawks putting pressure on Stafford obviously will be, a huge way, obviously, to slow him down and kind of limit the crossers that kill the Seahawks a lot, or like kind of the short passes where, you have, guys like Kupp and, Tutu Atwell and guys like that, on the Rams offense. I think slowing down the run game, which for the most part, the Seahawks run defense has been pretty good this season. So I think slowing down the run defense or slowing down the run game and then putting pressure on Stafford will be kind of the keys, as well as not turning the ball over. So I'm looking for the Seahawks to kind of do that in this win. Chargers -3, mostly just fading Green Bay here. Their defense is banged up, and I don't think that they have the offense to keep up with the Chargers like we saw in the Chargers-Lions game last week. That was a shootout. I don't think the Packers have that firepower to kind of keep up with the Chargers offense in this one, even if Keenan is a little bit limited. In this game, as he's been, sidelined, but then he returned to practice on Thursday, so he should be good to go. And then Bears-Lions, like I said last week with the Chargers-Lions, that was a shootout. I'm expecting something similar here with Justin Fields healthy for the Bears. The Lions, offense should light up the Bears defense. I think the Lions secondary is beatable, as we've seen this season. And I think, a healthy Fields with DJ Moore, Fields' rushing ability will do enough to, keep the game competitive and put up a lot of points as well. So I could see this game going into the high 50s, potentially low 60s, potentially. So I like the over 48 in Bears-Lions. So Seahawks money line, Chargers to cover 3, and the Bears-Lions over 48.
I think that's solid right there. When you look at the Seahawks, we already talked about it. I think the Seahawks, in this bounce back spot, you mentioned, the Seahawks did lose Charles Cross and Abe Lucas in that week 1 game, and now the Seahawks are obviously a lot healthier and obviously in a better spot in this bounce back spot. And you mentioned, Gino does struggle against zone defenses, and obviously the Rams do know how to play good zone defense, and McVay kind of knows how to scheme up against. He knows how to scheme against Pete Carroll, but I like the Seahawks in this bounce back spot. Obviously, the Rams have been trending in the wrong direction. I think the Rams have pretty much almost given up right now. I think they're almost and now obviously I think this is their last game in their must-win game for them. I don't think they get it done. You mentioned Matthew Stafford coming back from injury. That's going to play a big factor in that. And then I feel like this pass rush for Seattle now with Leonard Williams can play a big factor. And a Rams offensive line that has changed a lot. So give me the Seahawks on the money line. And then you mentioned Chargers -3, Green Bay at home. Obviously, I don't like Green Bay in this spot. You mentioned the defense is banged up for Green Bay, and obviously, the Chargers, obviously one of the better offensive teams. And the question for them was, if Keenan Allen was going to play, and we just found out yesterday that Keenan Allen is going to be playing on Sunday. So, Justin Herbert has his favorite receiver against a Green Bay defense that does not have their top guys in the secondary. So give me the Chargers -3. And then you mentioned the Bears line over. I like that as well. The Bears with Justin Fields back, I think their offense is significantly better. And obviously we saw the last week game between the Lions and Chargers where, that was almost a Super Bowl-esque kind of game, just going back and forth. And the Lions, getting the 41-38 win. And I agree with you. I think this game goes into the 60s. I think it's going to be a really high-scoring game, but I do like the Lions Bears to go over 48 as well. So that I think that's a 3-0 card for you for you Ari on Sunday. But let's go back all the way to Friday. We're just going to do a quick recap of today, and then we'll have all these posted. We'll have all these plays posted for each day. We'll have Saturdays posted tonight at around 5:30, and then on Saturday night we'll have Sundays at the same time. But we're going to have these plays posted pretty much immediately because Dayton tips off in about 30 minutes. So Dayton money line, quick right there, and then Houston -9.5, Providence on the money line at -122, and then Colorado to cover at +4 against Washington State tonight. And then Ari, he has Colorado +4, and he said We don't need the points. We'll take them on the money line as well as a little sprinkle. I also have Colorado money line as a sprinkle as well. And then he has get out Knicks first half -4, obviously, against the bad Wizards team that is not serious right now. Knicks first half -4. Those are our plays for today. You can find all of our weekend plays on Twitter below at AKP Sports Talk, and you can find all of these plays posted pretty much as soon as the video will be posted and ends as well. And then obviously, as we mentioned, tonight we'll have our plays for Saturday posted on our Twitter, and then Sundays we'll have posted by Saturday night as well. But that is going to do it for a loaded episode of AKP Sports Talk. That is Ari. I'm Kriya. We'll be back on Monday to recap all of this and more and future best bets with AKP Sports Talk. That's Ari. I'm Kriya. We'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend, and let's win some money. See you guys on Monday.